Good afternoon, friends. We are in Berkeley, in California, which is and having some lovely weather. Nothing like sitting outdoors on a Friday afternoon and having a conversation. And I have with me my dear friend Rak or Arun Kumar. He is the corporate vice president at Hexaware Technologies. Now, Arun and I had a conversation about 2 years ago where we spoke about a number of topics, and we just want to take off from there. So one of the things that Arun, you had spoken was around the fact that how the entire salesperson persona is changing,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
So
yes.
we're now seeing what is called a full stack salesperson. So how are you seeing that practically getting executed on the ground? Because I still see a lot of organizations struggling to have salespeople with who are really multi-profiled in that sense. Yeah, so to be happy to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely, Thomas. And our association goes back a long way.
Yeah,
And this is California living at its finest. So welcome to California. I'm a local, as some of you already know, and happy to have this conversation.
yeah,
Um, from a sales standpoint, I think that the whole field is moving towards being a digital salesperson.
right,
And what it means is essentially whether you are a SaaS company or in the platforms business,
right,
you have to now get away from the traditional methods of selling
yeah,
and get into what we call nowadays as digital sales and marketing.
right,
I think you use the term full stack.
right,
And essentially it means that you are responsible right from lead generation,
correct,
from demand management, campaigns, on the way to lead conversion as well.
right,
Right? And you have to break through the clutter. It's a very cluttered field out there.
sure,
I mean, as you yourself know, all of us know, we are inundated with messages on social media. Somebody's trying to reach out to you to come up with a value proposition. It's not easy, right?
Right.
So how do you stand out of the clutter? I think
Right.
that is the problem statement, especially for small SaaS startups,
Right.
which are trying to get into the overcrowded American market,
right,
US market, right? And we see that. I mean, we see a lot of established companies making a change in their sales model,
okay,
like looking at something like a Google Cloud Platform, GCP.
right,
Thomas Kurian came in as the CEO 2
Yeah.
years ago, and he's completely retooled the
Right.
way GCP is going to market.
right,
What you need are people who understand how enterprises buy,
right,
right? And how can you reach out to these decision makers in these enterprises in this crowded field using digital techniques?
right.
So I just want to pause here and see if this is something you want to build on a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, see, the issue that, and many of the companies that I know quite closely are actually struggling with this because, for them it's about how do they make the breakthrough. Right? So if you're coming from another country and you're landing in the US, how do you get your first 4 or 5 customers or even your first pilot going? I think that's the first hurdle that they would like to cross.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, what's really the secret sauce for that? Because many of them are trying to use some connects to do this. They're trying to get their, the people who have invested in them to open some doors. But I think they're all struggling with, defining the ideal customer profile in that true sense. They're struggling with, defining the ideal messaging for a market like the US.
Yeah.
And importantly, where do you land that first customer, right? I mean, I think once you've landed a first few customers, then you start gaining some further insights.
Yeah.
I think it helps you refine your thought process, refine your strategy,
Absolutely.
and then start driving things in a slightly more definitive way. So I think that initial breakthrough is something that a lot of people are struggling with.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think you're right. The first starting point is, do you have a well-defined product or a platform,
Right.
and have you vetted it out? Have
Yeah.
you done a POC?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if you got some funding,
Yeah.
then obviously your investors are convinced,
Right.
right? And you got a good start.
Right.
So congratulations. If you got a first round
Yeah.
seed funding, you're
Yeah.
up and on the races. Now you have to figure out how to monetize
Right.
what you have already built, right?
Right.
And we are facing that. Even though I work for a $1 billion kind of company,
Right.
but we do have small new offerings.
Right.
In fact, my unit, we come up with a product which is called Collab, which is a SaaS
Yeah.
product. how do you actually take it to market?
Right.
When otherwise we have been selling services.
Correct.
Right? So we've gone through this whole process of defining a target account list.
Right.
We have an inside sales team, sits in India, which essentially looks at, web-based campaigns.
Right.
We are doing LinkedIn campaigns. We are doing Twitter-based campaigns. We have identified the profile of people that we want to reach out to.
Sure.
It's not very costly.
Right.
In fact, some of these reach outs in LinkedIn, etc., can be done at a pretty low overhead.
Correct.
And it can reach to multiple. I think the important thing is clarity about the decision maker. Right? So first of all, what you're selling, to whom you're selling,
Yeah.
and what kind of profile that is. Identify that, narrow it down in terms of the segments and the verticals.
Yeah.
And then craft a message which you can take, whether it's through a social media, email, tweet, and the right kind of ads and search engine optimization.
Yeah, correct. And so I think I just wanted to talk a little bit about how a lot of companies have this dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
If they are entering the US, then should they hire, even if let's say they have the funding.
Yeah.
So should they hire the first salesperson in the US, quickly, or is it that sitting in their home country, they can have a bunch of SDRs who is doing business development, they source some databases. So I think people are struggling with which is the ideal model, because one of the big issues that we also face is that even if you have the funds, are you able to land the right salesperson? Yesterday, I was in a conversation with a very senior person who ran like a multi-million-dollar company, and he said he ran through 7 VP of sales over
Yeah.
a period of time.
Yep.
Because it was very difficult for them to really find the right fit. And recently, I met another founder of a startup who said the same thing, that look, he hired 2 salespeople and they were just not working out, and they were all expensive. So I think this is a dilemma that people have. Should we hire somebody? Should we or use our resources from our home country to make that first entry, or should a co-founder relocate? I think these are some big dilemmas that people face, and there's a cost attached to everything.
Absolutely. So, couple of thoughts here. First of all, don't hire very costly resources, senior resources, because the cost of a wrong hire can hobble you, can take away time, effort, and energy. Right. Especially the kind of products you're talking about. Like, you talked about some blockchain as a service.
Yeah.
You talked about some of the other startups in HR tech and so on.
Yeah.
There are a lot of millennials, young graduates,
Correct.
with fire in their belly, who understand digital techniques and are well suited to reaching out to enterprises, because they may have done some internships, they may have some background, and they, you can hire them off campus, or you can, hire people with 1 or 2 years experience.
Sure.
Have somebody senior from your team, leadership team, who can manage them either remotely or, periodic visits, right? And give them the authority to open doors. I think you still will need somebody senior in your leadership team to come close the deal, but at least to get the leads, and I have seen that with maybe a week's coaching, 2 weeks coaching, you can actually enable these people who are young, who understand digital sales, to be more effective than hiring a VP level, I feel, or a director level. That's my understanding, that you probably will get more success, more bang for your buck by hiring, let's say, 5 junior sales associates who are coming out of good MBA schools than 1 VP level person.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to switch on to a new area for discussion was really around how large enterprises, it could be Hexaware or Infosys or TCS, they are also creating an ecosystem around them of startups.
Yes.
Because sometimes they find that there are certain niche areas where they need a solution when they don't have it, and they might rather partner. So is this practically working well, or is it more of optics? Because I see a lot of optics around it as well. A lot of companies saying that, we're going to build an ecosystem, and there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of PR, there's a lot of branding, but perhaps nothing much comes out of it for these startups. So is there a real problem that this ecosystem play can address, in your view?
I think it could, in the right manner. See, when we go to market with our partners, some of our leads, even for Hexaware, we get it from partners like Microsoft. I don't see a reason why a startup partnering with us, if they have a very niche, differentiated offering, cannot get leads through us. So I'll give you an example. There is a company called Fraxis. It's in the data analytics space. It's the future of data. It's a South African-based company, very small, but they are working with us for one of our largest customers,
Right.
and they are using that to create a good enterprise-level presence for themselves.
Right.
And now they are reaching out.
Right.
We've had some other partners like that, where company has started small.
Yeah.
They work with a provider like us because we have a good enterprise customer base.
Right.
And as long as they have a differentiated, cutting-edge offering,
Yeah.
we don't mind taking you to the market and
Yeah.
helping you get introduced.
Yeah, but how can they actually crack it? Because so I've heard about some companies having a marketplace, right? I mean, they have 100 or 200 or even 500 companies in the marketplace. Of course, it takes a while for you to come onto the marketplace because you have to clear some.
Are you talking about the hyperscalers, the marketplace, in the like the Azure marketplace?
Yeah,
or
no,
something?
no, yeah, it could be Azure marketplace, or it
That's
could
very
yeah, it could be an SAP marketplace or an Oracle marketplace or any other large company who has a marketplace. So very often, I think the problem that you have is that people can sign into the marketplace, but they might see some branding, some brand value, but there is no structured go to market. So
Well, I mean, you can
yeah.
go white label as well.
Yeah.
You don't need to necessarily go with a brand.
Right.
You can go white label as long as it helps you establish some credentials.
Right.
Because as a startup, what are you looking for? You're looking for some success stories.
Correct.
You're looking for some leads into enterprise customers.
Right.
Which you then want to leverage.
Right.
As long as it's not an exclusive arrangement.
Yeah.
As long as you keep it non-exclusive so that you can repeat that elsewhere.
Right.
And don't get tied into one provider or one client. You can do white label.
Yeah, correct. So talking about white label, I think we are seeing that as a great way for a lot of international startups to enter the US, because one of the things that we've seen with product companies in the US, US has seen productization for several decades.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
And many of these product companies today have legacy products, legacy
Yes.
technology, and they're unable to. And if they have to be competitive, they need to. It might be difficult for them to build. So sometimes it's much easier for them to white label. So one of the strategic initiatives that I see of value to a lot of B2B SaaS companies from around the world is to see that is to really hunt for some white label opportunities if they have a great cutting edge technology with companies with a legacy technology. And we've done a couple of them in recent times. I've been involved in some of these deals. And that is another big opportunity in the US. But
Yes.
I mean, you need to navigate well because you need to know who is your candidate. But I think the market for that is fairly significant, right? I think
Right.
that's another
it
trend
is.
that I have
It
seen.
is. It
Yeah,
is.
and a good way for a B2B SaaS company to enter the US. Instead of getting your first customer, get your first white label, and then leverage
use
them
that to expand.
actually
exactly,
make it happen.
Exactly what
Yeah.
I was. Yes. And I think I'm assuming that most of the SaaS companies that you are involved with,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you have a pretty exciting portfolio.
Yeah.
Are all in cutting edge new areas.
Yes.
You won't find senior level salespeople
Yeah.
with experience in this.
Correct.
So I think you should stop hunting for senior salespeople.
Yeah.
Right. I think you will find people who are in the younger age group.
Yeah.
Who understand this.
Yeah.
And who can be groomed
Yes.
to take this on.
Yeah.
And let the founders and let the senior folks who are part of the product marketing team or whatever
Yeah.
help them with conversions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are also, for instance, that's the reason why we are working through accelerators.
Yes.
And we are also exploring possibility of companies which are in adjacent areas,
Absolutely.
non-competing but
Yes.
adjacent
So
areas.
you guys can
They
pool
can
your-
even share
pool your
salespeople.
resources, absolutely.
And recently we took part in Unleash, which is a great HR tech event in Vegas, where we had 5 of our HR tech companies
Came together.
on the same
Nice.
platform.
Nice.
So it's a great cost-effective way of doing
that's
things.
like sales
And-
as a service.
yeah, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
So I think there are some, great innovative ways in which founders need to look when you have limited budgets and when you want to crack a market like the US, because it can be very expensive.
Yes.
And also find good ways of building relationships with people who may not be who you probably don't want to sell to,
Yes.
but who can validate your proposition, who can be bouncing boards. So for instance, on this trip I have built relationships with a number of CHROs in the US,
Absolutely.
who are all willing to give time,
Yep.
to really look at some smart startups from around the world and give their thoughts.
I mean,
And-
as long as you have a portfolio,
Yes.
I think you can treat, you can
Yes.
share some of these costs
That's
and
right.
expenses.
That's right,
So, having a portfolio helps.
Yes,
Having a VC network,
correct.
an investor network,
That's
which can
right.
introduce you.
Yes.
I mean, you mentioned that very
Yes.
early on. I think
Correct.
having that kind of connects from the investors
Yes,
at least gives you a place to knock on.
That's
Now,
right.
they may not be able to help you crack it open.
Right.
That's where your own sales team comes in play.
Correct.
But at least they will give you the introductions.
That's
It's a
right.
warm introduction.
That's right.
That's much better than a cold call.
Yeah, correct. And I'm convinced that US is a great opportunity for cross-border pollination of B2B
Absolutely.
SaaS.
Absolutely.
Because it's a huge market. The economy is doing decently well, and a lot of companies from around the world who are in the B2B SaaS space can find entry, and they just have to be innovative. So it's not just about innovation and product, but I think innovation and go to market. I think that's a very important thing. I think a lot of people miss this out. They focus a lot around innovation and product,
but they go to the traditional go to market.
Yeah, correct. But innovation and go to market, to my mind, is going to be the biggest game changer.
So let me give you another idea.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if cost is the big concern.
Yeah.
It's a diverse buying set of cohort. Okay.
Right.
I mean, everybody in the senior leadership position, they're very diverse. Okay.
Right.
You can get good salespeople for 1/3 the cost in Mexico.
I see. Okay.
They are in the same time zone.
Right.
It's all virtual selling anyway.
Right.
It doesn't matter where somebody is.
Right.
Right. You just have to have a internet connection, a video conference feed,
Yes.
and you're up and running.
Right.
We have actually had some success having
Great.
recruiting people in Mexico
Correct.
who understand good English,
Right.
and who can just sell into the US market.
Yeah.
And they are culturally closer,
Yes.
and they can establish these connects. They can even
Yeah.
talk football, American football.
Fabulous, yeah. So I think we'd encourage B2B SaaS companies to look at innovation in sales, innovation in go-to-market, innovation in marketing, because I think those are the big game changers. And while we need to continue to innovate as far as the product is concerned, I think innovation in this entire go-to-market strategy, I think, is really key.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think I'm willing to help anybody who needs some more advice and
Right.
continue to work with you, Thomas.
Yeah,
Taking
great.
this forward.
So, thanks so much, Arun. It was
you.
fantastic.
Pleasure.
Arun has come all the way from Palo Alto. He's driven 1.5 hours to meet me, and I'm absolutely thrilled and honored, by
I'm
your
delighted,
presence here.
Thomas. You called me over.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Yes.
Thanks so much, friends, and until next time.
Thanks.
Bye from us.
Take care.